call roll all members present. This meeting will be recorded and posted within 48 hours to Metro Nashville YouTube channel. All action items voted on at today's meeting will be reconfirmed at the next in-person meeting of the committee. Public comments previously submitted will be read by Metro Arts staff member Grace Wright. A Metro Arts staff member is also available at the Nashville room at the Metro office building, 800 2nd Avenue South in Nashville. Now I encourage all participants on this call to stay muted and use the raise hand WebEx function, if they would like to speak. If you have any technical difficulties with these functions, just let us know before we proceed. Okay, so I'm gonna call now Commissioner Jim Schmidt. Just let us know if you're present.
I'm here, sorry. Sorry. I couldn't find the app. I'm sorry, it disappeared.
That's okay. Commissioner Jackie Daniels.
Here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we need a motion that the meeting agenda constitute essential business of this body, and meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans considering the COVID-19 outbreak, and it is permitted under the Governor's Executive Order number 60. I need a motion, please.
So moved.
Okay, I need a second.
Yes, second.
Thank you so much. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Oh, I'm sorry. I need to call by name, right?
Yes, technically, even though we have a small group here today.
Okay, I'm sorry. Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel? Jackie?
Can you hear me?
Yes, no. What was your vote? Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so we're meeting today to discuss the Executive Director, Caroline Vincent's evaluation. I hope that you had time to review it, and I will kind of do a brief summary, and then I'll make sure to leave some time in case you have any questions. We have 4 areas within the major job responsibilities. Number 1, community relations and engagement. I gave her a 3. I think that we're living in very uncertain times, and I think she has demonstrated incredible leadership with her staff and also community partners, our institutions, grantees, and the board. For organizational management, I received feedback from her managers, and within that feedback, she was highly praised by her staff. She's described by managers as a great leader who is focused and continues to implement workflow improvements across the agency. She has quickly adapted to changes and challenges and continues to cultivate leaders within the agency. Ian Myers has a copy of this, the feedback that they sent me, if you would like to see it. Public policy. Caroline worked hard to evaluate the bylaws per the board's request. She presented those changes and were quickly approved. She continues to demonstrate full knowledge of how government functions and how to work within Metro parameters. In public programs and investment, she continues to grow and improve existing programs, has made quick and smart decisions based on the times we are living in, finding ways to reallocate funds to help struggling artists due to the tornado and COVID-19. She has been an advocate for the arts community. Do we have any questions about this area? Or any comments? Okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say no, I fully agree.
Okay. Core I cannot talk today. I'm so sorry about that. Competency. Adaptability and flexibility. I would say that this past year has been one full of changes, and Caroline has quickly adapted to our city's reality without losing focus or drive. And I meant to say I gave her a 3 on all of the other areas of the major job responsibilities. And the core competencies, I also gave her a 3 in all areas. And if you have any questions about that, let me know. But on the communications section, I said she's a communicator. She keeps the board informed at all times and is direct and open with her staff. She demonstrates to work well under pressure and is always providing clear instructions and solutions. Customer relations, she's a great listener and has been fully involved in their community during these difficult times. She has been meeting on a regular basis with our arts institutions to try to find solutions to ease the economic impact of COVID. Dependability, she continues to be goal-oriented. She delivers board expectations in a timely manner and is always open to new challenges. Initiative, she needs little or no supervision to do her job. She continues to communicate on a regular basis with the board chair and the entire commission. She's always looking for ways to improve her work as an executive director and is open to suggestions from the board. Teamwork, peer relations. Caroline's managers have great respect for her and her work ethic. She's respected by her peers within the arts community. Through many staff changes, she continues to create a good work environment for her staff, and her staff is focused and doing amazing work in the community. Compliance with rules, acceptable. And then on goal achievements, I added 4 goals for her this year. Number 1, continue to work with our community partners to look for ways to improve the artists' work conditions, mostly artists of color. Number 2, continue to improve the organization structure that allows a diverse and equitable work environment. Number 3, continue to work on professional development when it comes to equity and diversity. And number 4, continue to grow the agency in terms of organizational development and funding. Now, anybody has any questions or comments about the evaluation?
No, I don't have any questions. I think it's a great evaluation of her, and I think I'm fully in agreement.
Okay. Thank you so much. And so Ian, I think we have to vote. Yes, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Y'all will need to, and Ian, if you want to clarify, make a motion to accept the performance review and then vote. Excellent.
Okay, so yes, so we need a motion to accept the performance review.
So moved. I move we approve our accept the performance review.
Yes, second.
This is Jackie, and I second that.
Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Commissioner Schmidt, what's your vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Daniel?
Yes.
Okay, so moved. Thank you so much. And I guess this meeting is adjourned. Is that?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
This particular meeting is adjourned.
Okay, okay. And then I guess we'll reconvene in a few more minutes for another meeting.
Absolutely. So we'll probably continue the recording, Downtree, unless you can pause it.
Yes, I can pause it.
Would you mind doing that?
Okay, well, welcome everybody to today's meeting. We have a packed agenda, but we'll try to go through this as quickly as we can. And so today the Metro Arts Commission and Metro Arts staff are joining by conference call. In a moment, we will call roll of all members present. This meeting will be and posted within 48 hours to Metro Nashville YouTube channel. All action items voted on today's meeting will be reconfirmed at the next in-person meeting of the committee. Public comments previously submitted will be read by Metro Art staff member Grace Wright. Metro Art staff member is also available at the Nashville room at the Metro office at 800 2nd Avenue South in Nashville. Now, I encourage all participants on this call to stay muted and use the raise hand WebEx function if you would like to speak. If any of the commissioners are having any technical difficulties with any of these functions, please let us know before we proceed. And now I'm going to do, I'm going to call all of you and just say present. Commissioner Jim Smith.
Yes, here.
Commissioner, thank you. Commissioner Jackie Daniel.
I'm here.
Here.
Commissioner Will Cheek.
Here.
Commissioner Clay Haynes.
Here.
Commissioner Marcus Whitney.
Here.
Commissioner Jane Alves.
Here.
Commissioner Bonnie Dow.
Here.
Commissioner Mattia Powell.
Here.
Commissioner Campbell West.
Here.
Okay, and if I am missing anybody, please let me know, and my apologies if I am missing someone.
Mary Elena, it looks like Sherry has joined as an attendee. So Dontre, if you wouldn't mind making her a panelist, and then hopefully she can unmute and answer the roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Sherry Nichols-Busey.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Now we need to call for a motion that the meeting agenda constitute essential business, of this body, and meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans considering the COVID-19 outbreak, and is permitted under the governor's executive order. Now, if someone would like to propose a motion.
So moved.
Seconded. This is Jim Schmidt.
Okay. Now, if anybody has any comments, okay. Again, Commissioner Schmidt.
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd.
Aye.
Commissioner Cheek.
Aye.
Commissioner Haynes.
Aye.
Commissioner Whitney.
Aye.
Commissioner Alves.
Aye.
Commissioner Dow.
Aye. 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 Aye.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next order of business concerns the executive director's evaluation. The executive committee just met before this meeting to discuss. And if you would like a copy of the report, you can request that from Ian Myers. Do you have any questions? Okay. I will now go ahead and pass the meeting to Caroline.
Great. Thanks, Marilena, and hello, everyone, again, virtually. I guess we can go to the next slide. Okay, well, I thought it might be a good time to just give you a quick update. I have been asked to give this presentation to the Tennessee Arts Commission recently, and also a lot of this data has been, or just, what we've been collecting has been provided to the CARES funding committee. So I wanted to make sure you also were up to speed on sort of the state of the arts in Nashville right now. Not much of this will be surprising to you, I am very sure, but I think it's important to quantify, the losses that are being experienced in our community. Already, our arts organizations have sustained more than $50 million in lost revenue since the end of March. We have more than 369 full-time equivalent positions that have been eliminated. And this is all through our arts nonprofit sector. Also 650 part-time positions eliminated as well. And in a typical year, the Nashville nonprofit arts and culture sector supports more than collectively 16,000 jobs. And that includes, direct job support, but also just within the region as, support for the sector. We did a survey just recently again to update data in September, and about 40% of the organizations said they have laid off or furloughed employees, and 30% specifically identified the need for additional funds to avoid additional layoffs. So that is obviously top of mind. We can go to the next slide. So of the survey that we did, in the data we've collected, the top concerns for arts organizations, again, you will not be surprised, but revenue losses, of course, closures and safety measures have resulted in major loss for our cultural institutions of all sizes. Of the largest organizations, the losses are ranging, from 500,000 to 22 million as far as, revenue. Operating reserves and cash on hand, the organizations report a range of less than 1 month to less than 12 months of operating reserves on hand. Fundraising challenges, all, are having and are anticipating further difficulty raising funds. Nonprofits are impacted by both the closures, event cancellations, and the larger economic crisis. Revenue is down from both programming, ticket sales, that kind of thing, and private sector fundraising, as individual donors are not, giving as much. And I think I've heard a lot of commentary, most fundraising and dollars right now are going into social services and direct COVID relief support, which is of course a priority and important, but this has meant, an additional challenge for our arts organizations. Additionally, most, of their major fundraisers were canceled this year. So any, in-person larger scale fundraisers are obviously not happening. The duration of the crisis. So, how long is it going to take before we can safely welcome patrons back in, artists onto stages in a way that will provide sustainable revenue? Arts, the first to close, they'll be the last to open. And based on recent national research, we know that in-person performing arts will be the last thing that we're able to go back to, and the last thing people actually report feeling comfortable going back to. Another interesting data point was the current market potential for exhibit-based organizations for this calendar year is at 37% of their 2019 audience levels. And then talent drain. So organizations are concerned about losing talented personnel, which will further delay the recovery when we're able to go back. So collectively, of course, everyone's sort of facing multiple things, but emergency operating funding was the number one thing they said they really need to survive and get through this crisis. So with all of that, I'd like to pivot, to talk about how they're responding, and we can go to the next slide. Nearly all of our organizations are still offering virtual programming to the city, even when operating at a loss. So I think, Grace, if you're there, then the next slide shows Belcourt Theater is offering virtual films, virtual film education seminars. High School Film Club is still meeting virtually, and they just launched the Belcourt Drive-In, which is running every weekend until it's too cold to do so. Global Education Center is pivoted to online and virtual classes and programming. The National Museum of African American Music has a robust suite of online programming, as do most of our organizations. They're really finding ways to engage with their audiences and continuing to operate. So that's exciting to see. And of course, the arts community is being innovative and creative and figuring out solutions to this. So we can go on to the next slide. I think, yeah, that was just showing the National Museum of African American Music. And then I also wanted to highlight sort of how Metro Arts has supported the arts community through this. You're, of course, aware of the Thrive funding that we approved back in April. And that sort of resulted in anything from spoken word poetry, theater, improv workshops, DIY videos, and tutorials. on the next slide, you'll see Alicia Mrozik's funded project was a really big hit. Her coloring book was distributed online and also at Metro School's food distribution sites, along with crayons. So that was really fun. And I really love that it was, online digital, but also made available to people who maybe didn't have, the online access to it. Next slide. And as we were trying to, pivot to support artists, we're also looking at our public art funds and thinking about innovative ways we can support artists. And as you know, you've approved this project funded through the Percent for Art Fund that supports local artists. So you'll hear more about this later in the meeting, but this is the lending library program that will be acquiring artists' work. So that's exciting. And I think that sort of wraps up that part. But I did want, before I leave the presentation, just wanted to address a couple of other things. You are aware earlier this week that we were asked to suspend all grant contracts and payments for at least weeks while a referendum and the charter amendment. We are deeply concerned, obviously, given all this data that I just shared with you about our partner organizations. In addition, we've been asked to suspend all other funding programs as well, which includes Thrive. So today we will move through the recommended Thrive projects that are on the agenda. And if approved, those will be, approved contingent upon our fund availability. So we won't be able to release funds immediately, but we hope, within the next couple of weeks, we'll have the go-ahead to continue those projects. At the same time, we are still working on a request of the CARES Act funding committee that the mayor put together and includes council members. They're actually meeting right now, and they've asked, I'm on the agenda, so I may jump over to that meeting later on and miss the tail end of our meeting. But council member Nancy Van Rees has filed a resolution asking for at least $1 million to be allocated to the arts. So again, I'll be jumping over to that meeting to answer additional questions. We hope that will happen, and we'll be figuring that out in the coming days and weeks. I think those are my financial updates. I did also want to just recognize the staff who are just doing an amazing job. This has been such a hard time for everyone in the world, but I just really want to recognize the Metro Arts staff for continuing to do such amazing work, dealing with multiple pivots every day, especially this week, the challenging conditions we're under. And I also want to, extend our appreciation to our partner organizations who are doing the same and, continuing to do this amazing work, even though we're dealing with such a hard time. I also wanted to recognize our chair, Mary Elena, who this will be her last meeting, and I'm super sad about that, but excited for Jim to come on board. But she's been an amazing leader, and support to me behind the scenes and as you've seen in meetings. So I just want to thank her as well. And I will turn it back over to Emily unless you guys have questions.
All right, if there are no questions, Grace, could you advance to the next slide, please? Great. The one media mention we want to share with you this month is UPLN's story about our new round of artworks that Caroline just mentioned. So just a little background, as she said, this is a Percent for Public Art funded project. This is the second phase of our artworks collection, which aims to bring work from local artists to places where all Nashvilleians can enjoy them. So it's really a win-win-win because local artists receive that support and promotion, and then Nashville's public buildings are filled with local art, and then residents of Davidson County have more access to arts and culture, which is the biggest part of our mission and vision. So our first round of this collection is housed at the historic Metro Courthouse and at the Metro Office Building, and this new round is perhaps even more public and accessible because the artworks will be at public libraries for patrons to check out and take home with them. So our call closed on October 11th after about 4 weeks of submission time, and we received submissions from 75 eligible local artists who each submitted up to 3 artworks for consideration. So next they'll go to the Citizen Selection Panel, the Public Art Committee, and then you all for your final approval. And we hope to have everything in place, selected, purchased, framed, cataloged by spring 2021 at 2 library locations for folks to check out and enjoy. So that's all for our highlights. Back to Mary Elena.
Well, thank you so much, Caroline, and thank you, Emily. Anybody has any questions so far? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move along, and we're going to go to our first action item. So I'm going to pass the meeting to Janine.
Great. Thank you all so much. And actually, first, we're going to do just a brief. The action items will concern Thrive, and we're going to give just a brief program update. Can I have the next slide, please, Grace? We are going to hear a brief presentation from Emily Habeck, who is our current graduate intern from Vanderbilt. And as you can see here on the slide, her focus on art is, she focuses on art as a vehicle for resilience and civic participation. And this past couple of months, she's interviewed Thrive April 2020 awardees. She's also been selected as a Curb Center Public Scholar. So without further ado, I'm going to just hand it over to Emily for just a brief update on her initial findings from her interviews.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Janine, and also thank you to Metro Arts for the time today to share these midpoint findings with the group. So some background on this project. In January, I started developing a project proposal about the role of the artist in terms of community meaning making and healing. And when the events of 2020 started to escalate, I knew I had to do this research. And the central question of my project is, what is the role of the artist, especially in a time of crisis, and how can we support them? So all the information I'm presenting today comes from a sample of April Thrive artists who agreed to do an hour-long interview with me. And they answered questions about their respective communities, their Thrive project, their social missions, and how all of these aspects of their identities here in Nashville coalesce. Next slide, please. So through the process, I learned that Thrive participants often work in hybrid roles in their communities, which to me means in addition to their art form, the artist may wear one or more of the following hats listed on this slide, with teaching and mentoring as a pretty common denominator amongst the people that I interviewed. And when I asked them how they respond as an artist to crisis, I got a variety of answers around speaking truth to power in terms of social justice, as well as creating joy and hope when many people are struggling. One of the artists said, if there are over 300 ways to pray, we need to understand that there are over 300 ways to resist. And for many of these artists, art is one of those pathways to resistance. And on the subject of joy and distraction, one artist said that I feel just letting people have these little happy things. And they felt that they were able to achieve that through their Thrive project and saw the benefit and the distraction that it provided their community members. Yeah, and so as I spoke with the artist, I got a really clear and consistent message about what's going well. First, the funding really helps support several of them in a very financially vulnerable time. And Thrive also gave the artists time and resources to respond artistically to what's happening in their worlds. One artist said, "We were very grateful that there was an organization that was willing to help support us when we didn't know where the next dollar was going to come from." And another artist I interviewed mentioned how their project has now taken on a life of its own beyond the Thrive funding, and the seeds were really planted for a long-term community artist engagement. And lastly, the artists really appreciated the staff's support through both the application process and the process of creating their works. And they knew that the staff wanted to see them succeed. So I just wanted to share that and let you guys know that your support is effective and appreciated. And next slide, please. So with that, moving forward, I have 3 recommendations / things to think about. The first is implementing a tracking system to follow the long-term outcomes of projects. I think that creating a system for periodic data collection regarding past projects, maybe at intervals of once a year or so, would help us gain understanding of Thrive's impact both in communities and in the ventures of the artists awarded funding. And two, I think it would create some really rich ongoing relationships, giving Metro Arts and artists an opportunity to stay connected and aware of each entity's work. And secondly, several participants mentioned that the Thrive opportunity inspired their creative idea, meaning they might not have made their project without the application as an impetus for the work. So with that, I think it's important to think about the powerful role that language plays in the application process and consider if there's another intention we want to follow that fits the community's needs. And this last recommendation, I think, is the most important, and it's the one that I'm most excited about. Participants brought to light the importance of making sure that opportunities like Thrive meet other talented artists in their communities where they are. So many artists might not apply because they're not comfortable navigating the application process, or they might even find it intimidating. And I think one way of achieving a deeper connection, especially to diverse communities, is having mentorship come from artists within that community. So the participant said that Nashville artists already value a supportive culture of teaching and mentorship. So I think interest and success here is a real possibility. And one way of going about this initially is we could reach out to former Thrive funding recipients, as well as other artists in the community to gauge their interest. The process might also benefit from an advisory group made up of Nashville artists who could provide input into the design of a program like this. And lastly, I think for the energy of a mentorship program to sustain, it would be helpful to find some funding so that the mentors could be paid a stipend and be valued for their time and work. And wrapping up here, the next steps as I continue with research, I'm going to survey the fall artists selected today. And I'm also meeting with staff members individually in the coming weeks to understand how, as an organization, Metro Arts sees success for Thrive in order to better understand if Thrive is meeting its goals. And that's the end of my very brief presentation. And again, a huge thank you to Janine and Metro Arts for allowing me to work with these amazing artists. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, thank you so much, Emily. Great. We'll, I think, move on to our action item, which today will be the FY21 Thrive proposed allocations. So just to give you a little overview of what we're going to do, I'm just going to briefly touch on the Thrive process and criteria just to make sure that, you know, just to remind you of those things. Then we are going to review the entire slate of the recommended projects, and then I'll hand it back to Mary Elena for any public comment or questions from the commissioners. So with that, let's have the next slide, please. So as you may know, Thrive is funding that supports collaborations between artists and organizations focused on community investments and transformation using art as the primary vehicle. So this is also funding outside of the traditional grants process and the Public Art Commission process, and it is often used as a gateway or catalyst for artists that are emerging or getting, established, and organizations that have not been historically funded. All right, next slide. Our Thrive cycle is kind of graphically presented right here. It begins with coaching. So staff will work with any interested applicants, and we will talk through the criteria and guidelines, talk through their project goals, etc., eligibility, feasibility, all of our criteria really, and see if there's a match, and develop them to the application part of the cycle. They apply, and then staff will review for eligibility at that point. Then at that point, all eligible applications will be sent to a community review panel, and those are arts advocates, folks related to the arts, active community members, who were given an orientation on our guidelines, and then are allowed to review, score, and rank the projects. So then those projects, if they are public art related, will be sent to the Public Art Committee for review. After that, all recommended projects are reviewed by the Grants and Funding Committee. At that point, the Grants and Funding Committee will make allocation recommendations, and then it gets here to the Arts Commission for kind of final review and voting. So that's the process. Okay, next slide, please. We'll go over the criteria, and then the criteria that we use to review Thrive applications are artistic excellence. So this means that there's going to be a professional artist who's paid to lead the project within the community, and they have, they attach resumes and have documented experience in the arts. Community engagement. What we mean here is that the project will have a strong relationship between community need, community voice, and then the project goals. Feasibility and logistics, aside from just the timeline and is the identified program coordinator, do they have documented experience? This year specifically, it requires some sort of social distance plan in place. So just wanted to highlight that. And then cultural equity, which is our newest criteria, will reflect a commitment to communities not historically represented in mainstream arts funding. And the process and content will be, so it'll will be inclusive of the community voice. Basically, yeah, this is and not just simply representation. So the community engaged will have their voice in the design, in decision making, production, all of that. All right, next slide, please. And now this is the exciting part, the recommended projects. So first we have the Black Lives Matter Movement Coalition mural. The lead artist identified is Thaxton Waters, with other application partners listed below: Grace Gadsden, John Smith, Brenda Ross. The lead community partners are Our Revolution Nashville and Middle Tennessee, Tennessee Alliance for Progress, and several other groups recruited to participate on letter creation. So the project will be a collaboratively designed and created street mural reading Black Lives Matter. The letters will be artistic expressions of different community groups from a wide-ranging and diverse coalition. A social distance plan is in place for the production of the mural. Each group will have a time slot to allow for social distancing, and then masks will be required. Their requested amount is $9,500. Their plan is to have the mural up through January, but later depending on fundraising for maintenance. All right, next slide. This shows the location, which is Woodland Street between 2nd and Interstate, and a street closure permit is in progress. And any award, as Carolyn mentioned, is contingent upon not only the public works permit, and the maintenance plan, but also just all the other financial issues that we are working through right now. All right, next slide. Next, we have the Pikes Project Poetry Billboard in South Nashville. The applicant and lead artist is Joe Nolan. His community partner is going to be Workers' Dignity. They're working on an online poetry workshop with essential workers, creating a collaborative poem, and it'll be credited to the Workers' Dignity poets. It'll be featured in a billboard somewhere in South Nashville, and it'll be featured in English and Spanish. The picture that is shown is a previous project that Joe did. that's similar, but with a different group and a different location within the city. He's going to be working with a professional English and Spanish translator from Workers Dignity who will work on the workshop with him and also on the Billboard translation. They're requesting $9,500. It'll be up for a month and then removed by the Billboard company. Next slide, please. This shows the location, the proposed location, and it'll be finalized if funding is approved. All right, next slide, please. All right, then we have the welcoming mural. This is from Tennessee Immigrant Refugee Rights Coalition with lead artist Woke 3. And the project is going to be a mural on Turk's newly constructed headquarters off of Antioch Pike, which is an immigrant community. Woke's concept, which you'll see in the next slide, is a depiction of a family being held by two different hands, which represents Turk's members and allies. The hands are surrounded by flowers and butterflies, which are symbols of migration, transformation, and rebirth. $9,500 is the request, and the ongoing maintenance will be part of Turk's annual operations budget. Next slide. So there you'll see the sample rendering created by Woke 3, also the location, and some other previous works that kind of demonstrate the artistic ability of the artist. All right, next slide, please. Great. Next, we have the Creative Girls Rock mural. So the applicant is Sharman Bates of Creative Girls Rock with the lead artist Alicia Israel Mrazek. They have several community partners, including One Ink Tattoo, the Equity Alliance, Boys and Girls Club, Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and many local colleges. It's going to be a mural that is aligned with Creative Girls Rock, their mission and initiatives, and they focus on women empowerment, youth development, mental health, and the creative arts. This year, the mural will also be focused on voting rights and the Black Lives Matter movement. The request is $9,500. They're working on their maintenance plan currently with the owner of the property and Metro Arts staff, and it'll be up for about 6 months. All right, next slide. And there's some samples of the previous works by the artists involved, and also the location, which is at Marathon Villages. All right, next slide, please. Great. Next, we have these colors within an inner journey through art. The applicant and lead artist is Ashley Mintz. Community partners are the Martha O'Brien Center, Creativettes, and the Boys and Girls Club. So it's going to be an art workshop series. It's going to feature poetry and visual arts. Her project goal is to reconnect participants with the many parts of themselves through art. Some workshops will be virtual and others will be in person with a socially distanced plan at the Martha O'Brien Center. The request is $9,500. Next, please. Then we have traditions and culture of Native peoples. This is a project with the lead artist, Jim Velosic, also Chuck Creasy and the Native American Indian Association of Tennessee. Their additional community partner is Long Hunter State Park. Their project will be a 5 to 8 minute short film featuring the story of Tennessee's first people. It is going to be poetic, but also historical, taking the viewer through the Trail of Tears all the way to the current survival as a people here in Tennessee. It's going to be a celebration of their resilience through their arts and culture, and will highlight many different art forms that they value: music, visual arts, craft, storytelling, and the culinary arts. And they are requesting $9,500. Next slide, please. Then we have Resilience Through Movement workshops with lead artist Hannah McCarthy, community partner, and several other dancers and musicians. Then we have with their community partners, the Hispanic Family Foundation and Plaza Mariachi. It's going to be dance workshops around Nashville or virtually over 3 months. Each workshop will be approximately 3 hours in length and will include a well-being check, instruction, and a jam or performance-like element. And they are requesting $9,500. Next slide, please. All right, then we have the Youth Voice column in the contributor. Elevating Youth Voice with a Purpose. So the applicant and lead artist is Jen Starzanek and Girls Right Nashville, and their proposed community partners are The Contributor and La Noticia. So the project will amplify underrepresented youth voice by creating and publishing a regular bilingual youth voice column as part of The Contributor, and this will be from November through May, and then it'll culminate in a teen takeover of the paper in May. And so all content will be youth contributed, and the teens will be compensated as any journalist would be. The column will be bilingual with guidance from professional staff writers from La Noticia and The Contributor. $9,500 is their request. All right, next slide, please. All right, then we have an art writing symposium from lead artist Courtney Johnson, lead applicant Courtney Johnson and lead artist Maria Hamilton Abagunde. And the community partners include TSU, Number Inc., I Want to Write Initiative, Nashville Scene, and the Vanderbilt University Press. It's a one-day virtual art writing symposium where all writers or writers of all levels will develop translatable skills, honest dialogue, and the ability to authentically communicate in writing. The 5 sessions will be centered around creating a diverse and more equitable world for art writing. And their request is $6,700. All right, next slide, please. And this is the overview. So you can see all the projects listed here, including the mentioned the project leads and the average scores of each of the projects, their requests, and then the recommended allocations. The total allocations are below in the column, and then the remaining balance for the next Thrive cycle is also listed, as well as the total Thrive Art Award budget. And with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to Maria Elena for any public comment or questions.
Thank you so much, Janine. Before I open it up for commissioners to be able to ask questions or comments, Grace, do we have any public comments on this motion?
We did. So if it works best for you, Mary Elena, I'll just read all of the public comments emailed to me.
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. So just to clarify for the commission, I'm reading these public comments verbatim in the words of the person who sent them to me. So our first public comment is from Charles Jackson. He writes, "To whom it may concern, for the past 20 years, I've called Nashville my home. The evolution of our city in that period of time has been astounding, as we've quickly entered the conversation as one of the top cities in the nation. However, this doesn't mean we are obligated to follow the trends of other cities in that conversation. In several major metropolitan cities across the country, Black Lives Matter street murals have been painted, and it has now come to Nashville. It is the opinion of this Tennessee native and a Nashville resident that what is being proposed for East Nashville is not art, it's a symbol. Over the past several months, it has become a symbol of violence, intimidation, and radicalism rooted in the... Can I ask for clarification about whether that's appropriate language?
Yes.
I don't see our lawyer present. I'm just going to get Ian to check this real quick.
Okay.
All right, apology, commissioners. I would just like to restate that this is verbatim and the opinion of the member of the public who is writing to us. Over the past several months, it has become a symbol of violence, intimidation, and radicalism rooted in the teachings of Marxist revolutionary movements. There have been calls for widespread abolition and threats to burn down the system if demands are not met. Hank Newsom, an activist for BLM, stated on June 25th, 2020, that if this country doesn't give us what we want, then we will burn down the system and replace it, all right? And I could be speaking figuratively, I could be speaking literally, it's a matter of interpretation, end quote. Judging from what has happened around our country in various cities in the name of BLM, it's not difficult to decipher whether this view is figurative or literal. This isn't Nashville. This isn't an attitude or viewpoint that we should support, nor is the notion of defunding our law enforcement in our city, which is yet another goal of the Black Lives Matter movement. What message would it send to the law officers who would have to drive over the very mural which advocates for for crippling their ability to protect and serve our communities? Co-founder of BLM, Alicia Garza, has stated that there's no such thing as blue lives. I beg to differ. The men and women of our city's law enforcement who put their lives on the line every day deserve to know that we support them. I could ramble on, as there are several other points within the group's agenda which I feel do not reflect the values of our community, but my goal is not to raise awareness or lecture. Those listening are intelligent, able to research what they choose and form their own opinions. My goal is to encourage asking the difficult questions. I see different murals declaring that we are Nashville strong, and I feel that's true. My question is this: where does our strength lie? Hopefully we can honestly ask whether or not these views are something we wish to condone in our city. Make no mistake, the painting of a mural of this nature on a public street will be a statement. One of having an established presence in our city and community, just like others around the country. And it would be foolish to assume that what is proposed would simply be words on asphalt. It's rather clear this particular movement stands for, as their actions have spoken volumes. Our response to the request to mark our streets will also be a statement. What will our statement be? What is Nashville going to stand for? Cordially, C. Frank Jackson. So that's the end of that comment. Jacqueline Sims writes in, quote, "Good to see the Arts Commission support this project on behalf of Black lives. Unfortunately, city policies or tax dollars don't always reflect the valuing of Black lives. Thank you, Jackie Sims." Let's see. I don't know the technicality on this front, but I did receive an email that I believe is for public comment from Eric Wilhite. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. So he sent me a document that he had posted on change.org that collected signatures in support of a Black Lives Matter mural, and it looks like it is listed as, I don't know the exact number of signatures on here, but the document is several pages long, and I'm happy to forward that to the commissioners if they would like to view that. And then I have a final emailed public comment from Sharon Taylor, who writes, "Good afternoon, Ms. Wright. I'm in favor of the Black Lives Matter mural being painted on the street in Nashville. It is my hope that people will begin to see it as to not see it as a political statement or a statement of hate, but as a statement that Black and brown people only want the freedoms and equality that Caucasians take for granted. Have a blessed day." In comment. And Chair, if you would also allow Brenda Ross to be recognized. She is here as an attendee, and she called to let me know she sent me a public comment, but I have not received it. I think there's a technical glitch. So I wanted to offer her the opportunity to either speak for 2 minutes or read the statement that she intended to send me.
Yes, she is. If she's present, she can speak.
Wonderful. Dantry, would you be able to unmute Brenda Ross on the attendee list?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Ms. Ross, if you would like to make a public comment, we ask that you state your name and your zip code. And once you've done that, I will start a timer for 2 minutes, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the commission.
Okay, I thank you very much for letting me address commission. My name is Brenda Ross. My zip code is 37207. I'm a very active community activist in Davidson County, a member of many organizations. We have had over 30 to 40 organizations partner together to make this project eventful. We would appreciate your approval of this project. This is a art mural that represents all of the communities. Like she said, the B will be African American colors, the L will represent LGBTQ colors, and the M will represent Music City. So we very much appreciate your approval of this project because it represents our Nashville residents as a whole, as a community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ross, for your comments. Grace, do we have any other public comment?
We do not. There's no one present at the Metro office building to make comment.
Okay, we want to thank everybody from the community who sent their comment on our public art. And now I would like to open it for our commissioners. If anybody has any questions or any comments, just make sure you raise your hand. Okay, Jim.
Afternoon, everybody. I have a quick question about, so the motion would be to approve these projects, assuming that the hold on funding that we're facing is lifted, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Can I ask a question about the timing? I don't venture to say what the courts are going to say about the potential impact to the city going forward if there's a referendum. And this is nothing reflecting on any of the projects here, which I think are all good things. But do we need to wait to approve these until we have a little more clarity? Or do we want to, is there something from a timing perspective that we need to try to allocate the funding before end of year or anything like that?
I guess regarding the funding, so again, as Caroline stated earlier, we'll approve the request. The action requested is to approve the projects, again, with the assumption that, hopefully in 2 weeks, funding will move forward and all the projects will be funded at that time. And I think, should other things develop that require us to, not fund, those processes will be put in place, and amendments will, adjustments will be made. If we're not available, if funds aren't available, we're not going to be able to invoice for those projects. but in regards to like timing and, so we're approving the projects, as is, or we're asking for your approval. And, again, similar to if our budget got cut, and our other, payments and contracts, we would not be, we would need to adjust our other programs at that time. And so payment would not move forward for different grant contracts, for example, or other program invoices.
The reason I raise that is just the thought for everybody on the committee. I mean, are we better if for some reason the funding hold is not lifted, and God forbid we get in a situation where the budgets end up having to be slashed? Are we better to wait until some of this gets a little clearer before we move ahead with approval? I mean, we potentially put these artists with the expectation out there that some funding is going to be coming, and then we might be in the position of having to basically say, sorry, based on the situation, we're not going to be able to do it. I mean, I think we're already, unfortunately, in that situation with our grantees, which is a much larger problem. I throw that out for consideration for us, everybody to think about. I don't know that I know the right answer, but I think it's something we ought to think about.
And I'm going to bring in Caroline to just comment on that right now, to give some additional insight.
Sure, I hear you, Jim, and I think that's a great point. I mean, I think from the staff's perspective, we're just trying to get through the process and do all the things we need to do to make sure if we do have funding, we can move forward. And if we wait, then we're talking about, and we do receive, ability to use our funding, then, we're into mid-November before we can get, the commission back together, typically. So I think it's up to you guys. I mean, I hear that, and I think you're absolutely right that this does, it does set up sort of an expectation for the funding, but it is our hope that we can move forward. I mean, we're hopeful that, if these are approved in a couple of weeks, if this is resolved, we're able to spend this money. We just say okay, now send us your invoices and we'll start the projects. But, we can do something different too. I mean, this has just sort of been decided in the last, 24 hours of let's just do this and sort of try to get these moved forward. But I hear, what you're saying. So I certainly appreciate that sentiment. And these are such great projects and we really want to fund them. But we are just, at the mercy of this budget situation.
Jim, unless you have a follow-up, I can, Mary Ann has a question as well, or a comment.
I have a comment. This is Mary Ann Bird. I would say that our approval of these projects, if for no other purpose, signifies the worthiness of the projects in our opinion, the Metro Arts Commission's opinion, and voting on them to approve them gives some value and some feedback to the artists and the individuals involved. Then at that point, we have the ability to make one of two choices depending on how funding moves forward. If we wait to allocate, we each prioritize the programs according to their scoring and then give them, 1 to 9 prioritization of their funding. Or we can say, if you can still do it or find some private funding, we can, if we have $10,000 instead of $100,000 to give away, and that's just, pulling numbers out of the air, we can cut our allocation by a certain percentage and fund them all, or we can prioritize them. But I think that approving them without funding immediately at least indicates to the artists involved that their project is worthy and that we appreciate the concept and the efforts.
Thank you. Anybody else has any other questions or any comments about this action item? Okay, so I guess Caroline would move to, oh, and before I continue, just for the record, I never said that the public comment was closed for this action, so I just wanted to say that. And if anybody would like to make a motion, if we decide to move on with the motion, just to make it contingent upon funding availability, then please raise your hand or make the motion, or if we need more discussion.
This is Will. I'll move to approve subject to funding.
Thank you, Will. Do we have a second?
This is Clay Haynes. I'll second.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we have any further comments or discussion? Okay, so I will go ahead and do a roll call. I'm going to start with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Daniel.
Aye.
Commissioner Marianne Bird.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Chick.
Aye.
Commissioner Haynes.
Aye.
Commissioner Whitney.
Aye.
Commissioner Alvis.
Aye.
Commissioner Dow.
Aye.
Commissioner Powell.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Busey-Nichols. Okay. Thank you so much. We will now, the motion passes. We will now move to action item number 2. So I will pass this on to Van. Ben, if I can have a second before you start, if I may, I just wanted to recognize Commissioner Nikki Kaufman. Unfortunately, she is leaving us, and I just wanted to just thank her for her years of service to the commission, to the Public Art Committee. She's been an amazing chair, for her passion for the arts community. And I'm sad that she's not here with us in the meeting, but I still wanted to take that moment to thank her and to recognize her and just let her know that we're going to miss her a lot. So, Van, I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure I didn't to recognize her.
You do not have to apologize for singing Nikki's praises, and grateful for all that she did, both at the commission level and as our public art chair. She will be so missed, not just by staff and this body, but also by Nashville in general. We're losing a good one, but she and her family have received an amazing opportunity that will be it'll be a wonderful blessing for their family. So we are so happy for her and excited for her chapter, which brings me to our next action item. We can advance the slide, Grace. So we need a vote today on our proposed Public Art Committee slate. As most of you know, we do have to have 2 commissioners represented on our Public Art Committee. We have had the pleasure of Campbell West, in addition to Nikki, who has been our chair. Today, we would like to bring 2 action items to you, or 2 motions for you to take action on. The first being slating Jane Alvis, who has graciously offered to rejoin PAC, and we are very, very, very excited about that. And not only is Jane willing to join us on the PAC, but also serve as chair. We also need to bring to this body the renewal of Donna Gilliam's term. And so if you look at the wonderful table that Grace the Amazing has put together, you'll see that all of our committee members, their terms are staggered. So we designed that so that we do not lose multiple people or committee members all at once. Donna was one of our newer committee members, and our newer members are given 1 year to decide if it is within their capacity, something they want to continue to do, make a commitment to, and Donna has enthusiastically agreed to extend her term, which we are thrilled about. She's a really, really amazing committee member and is chairing our lending library project. So we're very grateful for everyone's time and the energy that they put into PAC and the thoughtfulness that they bring to it. So that takes us to our next slide. The action requested is approval to renew Donna Gilliam's PAC term for 2 additional years, in addition to approval of the appointment of Jane Alvis to the Public Art Committee and approval of Jane as our Public Art Committee Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. Grace, do we have any public comments about this action item?
We do not, either by email or in person.
Okay, thank you so much. And should we vote on this as one action item, or should we separate?
It's my understanding that you can vote on it as a single action item.
Okay, thank you so much. Does anybody have any? Thank you. Does anybody has any questions or comments? Okay, so if we don't, we need a motion.
This is Mattia. I make the motion that we approve, that we renew Donna Gilliam's PAC term and appoint Jane Alvis as the chair.
Thank you so much. Do we have a second?
This is Jill. I'll second. Sorry, I've talked over one another.
Thank you so much. I will go ahead and do right now. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to say that, but for the record, we will not accept any more at this time for this action item. I'll go ahead and do roll call. Commissioner Schmidt.
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Daniel.
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd.
Aye.
Commissioner Chief.
Aye.
Commissioner Haynes.
Aye.
Commissioner Whitney. I think we lost Marcus. Okay, Commissioner Alvis.
Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Dow.
Aye.
Commissioner Powell.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Busey-Nichols.
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much. And now we are going to our action item number 3. So I will pass the meeting to Trey.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all are well. Today I'm going to present on our public art guidelines. So if you will go to the next slide. So we are today proposing some minor changes to our public art guidelines. These changes are specifically in the selection panel section of the guidelines. We started this process kind of inspired by the Cassie Gardner Senior Park project, and wanted to kind of switch up the way we do our call to artist process. And in order to do that, we needed to make a few small changes to our public art guidelines. So if approved, the changes would, Grace, if you don't go into the next slide. The changes would allow for our panelists to feature up to 11 members. It clarifies language that requires specifically that at least one panelist be a member of the community in which the project occurs. And then we also added an additional responsibility that allows panelists to give input prior to us actually releasing the call to artists. So I will show you the official changes that we're proposing as they appear in the public art guidelines on the next slides. So that first highlighted point in C, the composition of the selection panel, it was previously 5 to 9 members, and we're proposing to extend it to 11. This gives us an opportunity to add more community members to the panels, We've also featured, or we've also experienced a couple of times where, we have a very big decision to make, and life happens and people have to cancel. And when you have a smaller panel, especially when it's a community member, it really can be kind of a detrimental factor to the community presence in that panel. So we just want to make sure that we're able to get as many people involved as possible. And then the second part, we did have this language previously. I think we just wanted to make it clear that at least one panel member must be a current resident from the community in which the proposed project will be located. And I think we also wanted to use this way we can kind of use zip codes and districts to actually verify that. And then the next slide. And then finally, number 6, if needed, provide community input to identify specific goals and criteria for the project. Typically in our selection processes as staff, we're responsible for kind of talking with community members and crafting what the call to artists looks like. So this allows us to really gather that group prior to releasing the call to artists and kind of get input from them about the specific goals and criteria and scoring metrics that might actually end up being involved in the call to artists when it goes out. So these are the proposed changes. So the Public Art Committee has already seen this, and Public Art Committee recommends the following changes to the Public Art Guidelines to allow for panels with up to 11 members, including clarifying language requiring at least one panelist be a member of the community in which that project occurs, and then finally adding an additional panelist responsibility if needed to provide community input to identify specific goals and criteria for the project. So I will pass it back to Maria Elena to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trey. Grace, do we have any public comments on this motion?
We do not.
Okay, wonderful. So that is the end of our public comment for this agenda item. We will no longer taking comments regarding this subject. Do we have any questions from commissioners or any comments? Okay. Seems like we, yes, Commissioner Bird.
Under clarifying language requiring that at least one panelist be a member of the community in which the project occurs, does that not possibly make it difficult to, if you don't have somebody in that particular neighborhood? Or is that broad enough that as long as most zip codes are covered, you're all right?
I think specifically for that specific project. So if we usually do it by districts or council districts. So we usually will look at what council district the public art project will actually live in, and we require at least one person from that council district. So we don't necessarily require. There are specific sites where we consider the intention, like for fairgrounds. It's while it's in a neighborhood, it's something that's a little more broad in terms of, the community who is using that property. So we do consider that, but for all of our projects across the board, we do require one person from the council district to be on.
And that has been our chosen practice. It is not a requirement defined by the guidelines. The guidelines encourage it. Jay and I felt like that's a critical part of ensuring that the community voice is represented and heard, and that no matter who is in our given position at the time, that will be kind of standard practice from this moment in time, and when not that anyone is leaving anytime soon, but our tenure here has ended. I will also say that we work with each council member in that specific district that we are making an investment in. We reach out to them before the call to artist is released, and we do ask for a recommendation of a citizen panelist to serve in that capacity. So oftentimes this is someone who's involved in a neighborhood association or some kind of a varying official or unofficial kind of leadership capacity in their neighborhood. And so that is typically how that seat or that particular representation requirement is met.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that the rules did not preclude some particular area from having a piece of art, and that you would have to wait to get somebody on the committee in order to pursue a project. Thank you.
Great question. And nope, don't worry.
Great. So if we don't have any other questions or comments, we need a motion.
This is Jane. I move approval.
Thank you. We need a second, please.
Second, and Mary Ann Bird.
Okay, thank you so much. If we don't have any other comments or further discussion, I will do a roll call. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Daniel?
Aye.
Commissioner Bird?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheep?
Aye.
Commissioner Haynes?
Aye.
Commissioner Alves?
Aye.
Commissioner
Sorry, did you say Powell?
No, I said Bonnie Dow.
Yes, I vote yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell?
Aye.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Busey-Nichols?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you so much. And now we're moving on to action number 4, and I will hand it over to
Hi, Elena. Gracias. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm the project coordinator for the next 2 projects that are going to come up on the dock here. First, I want to talk about Matthew Mazzata's Madison Rises project proposal. Next slide, please. I want to give you a brief overview on how we got here first. In fall of 2017, PAC and Commission approved the direct selection of Matthew Mazzata for a 2-phase neighborhood Madison residency, which was funded by the Percent Fund. Between 2018 and 2019, Matthew Mazzata and Metro Arts hosted 2 outdoor living room community engagement events in Madison, which led to the identification of a site location, followed by the conceptual design. His unique engagement skills work very well with this project because how complex it is and how he knows how to create transformative spaces in communities that benefits the people he interacts with. To summarize, the proposed artwork location will be at the Madison Branch Public Library off of Gallatin Pike. Matthew Mazzata's design also maximizes the use of physical open space by transforming the front lawn into a year-round setting and theater space open for the public to experience art and performances. One major key to this project is the partnership with Madison's Public Library and other local organizations to curate public events that will bring a new layer of arts and civic engagement into Madison itself. And next slide. And actually, next I would like to play you a video created by Matthew Mazzata that shows the conceptual design. Grace, do you have that video? Oh, excuse me.
For a time before the advent of strip mall multiplexes, going to see a movie was a memorable experience. Movie studios and exhibitors would go brand show their film. Well, thanks to saving time, most of those palaces are gone. The movie Palace Hero started in their teens and went to the early 30s. And movies were the primary form of entertainment outside the home at that time. So the movie studios wanted to make these buildings over the top beautiful and really wow the patrons as they walk in the front.
Hey, Grace, it does seem that the video is a little choppy, and I think this is the longer version. Could we, there we go. Let's see. Grace, you're wonderful. We know that you are coordinating so much behind the scenes. You're making sure that this meeting runs flawlessly, and we're throwing all kinds of technology curveballs at you. So we are grateful for your time and commitment.
Of course. I'm so sorry. Can you just repeat what you said? I could not hear you.
Yes. So the video was choppy. Could we go to the PDF?
Or can you make me a,
Or, yeah, if you could just hand it over to Attilio.
I think I have the video here with me.
Yeah, Dante, would you mind making Attilio the presenter for, oh, you are already on it. Wonderful. Attilio, you should have that capability currently.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if everybody please bear with me really quick while I sync this up.
We promise the video is well worth this wait.
Okay. Do you all see it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to hit play. Okay. And now, do you want to take it back, Grace?
Yeah, Dante, if you could make me the presenter again.
Handing it back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And I guess now I'll just pass it back to Maria Elena, see if there's any questions.
Okay. Gracias, Attilio. Thank you so much. Do you have any public comments on this motion?
We do not.
And before I open it up for commissioners, I want to Councilmember Nancy Van Rees. She is joining us, and thank you so much for being part of this meeting, Councilmember Van Rees. And I just wanted to see if you have any any comments about this project.
Councilmember, oh, there she is.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I was just making sure she was unmuted, but it looks like Councilmember Van Rees should be able to speak.
Okay.
And she does have her hand raised.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay. Sorry, I have the other meeting in my ear while I'm listening to this. I'm doing double meetings as well. I wanted just to chime in both as the chair of Parks, Libraries, and Arts, that whenever possible, I will be kind of shadowing these meetings. And so if you have questions or concerns going forward, know that I intend to be present. This happens to land right in my district. So I'm here to let you know that I know that you had some technical difficulties in regard to really seeing the emotional impact or the wow factor involved with this project, but I'm sure that you can get a link to the video so that you can see it afterward. The video has been shared with the public. Everyone's very excited about it. Of course, we have a lot of work to do in regard to the technical nature of getting it accomplished and having it happen the right time and place. But the community involvement in this was absolutely textbook, and everyone's very excited about making this happen. As you know, this bus stop, which you might not know, on the 56th line of the BRT, or the Bus Rapid Transit Light, is the most frequented stop in the WeGo network other than downtown. And so several people get on and off the bus here, which could be extremely exciting for the project, but also a challenge for the project. So we want to make sure that we manage that and everything's in place to make that happen. But I just wanted to let you know that this is very exciting, and it has community support, and seize the opportunity to thank you all, each and every one, for the work that you're doing. The parks, libraries, and arts are the most important part of a city that always makes a city work, and I'm genuinely concerned about how we may face challenges going forward for funding. And so being able to use this NEA grant to show that that we're reinvesting into the city is vital and very timely. So I'll shut up, but thank you again for all of your work.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Van Rees, for joining and for your input. And now I will open it up for our commissioners if anybody has any questions or comments.
Elena, if I could just follow up, because we did have technical difficulties, Attilio and I will work with Grace to share that full video link to the proposal with everyone so they can get a clear idea of where the concept originated, but the foundation and of Matthew's work, but the foundation is really this lovely pop-up theater that is a nostalgic nod to the historic Madison Theater, which is physically still located on Gallatin, but looks much different now, and it's not serving in as a functional theater, but we do hope that this is an opportunity to kind of bring back that nostalgic glory of Madison yesteryears while still really encouraging and ensuring that this public artwork and that this meeting space and any programming that takes place there is open to the entire community. And so the staff has been working with the library, and we absolutely intend to also work with our council representation, including Councilmember Van Rees. And I think we have a lot of really interesting shared programming opportunities here, and that's what's really going to make this project even that much more dynamic. So we will follow up with some additional content for all of you, and I apologize for our strange technical difficulties in this strange virtual world.
It is completely fine. We understand there's a lot happening behind the scenes right now. So if there's no questions or comments, we would like, anybody would like to make a motion to approve Madison Rises?
Maria Elena, this is Bonnie. I move that we approve this.
Thank you so much. We need a second, please.
And this is Sherry Nichols Busey, and I second the motion.
Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And if there's no other further comments or discussion, we'll do a roll call. I'm going to start with Commissioner Smith. Sorry about that.
Aye.
Commissioner Daniel.
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd.
Aye.
Commissioner Cheek.
Aye.
Commissioner Haynes.
Aye.
Commissioner Alvis.
Aye.
Commissioner Dow.
Aye.
Commissioner Powell.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Busey-Nichols. Thank you so much. The motion passes, and I will pass it back to Atilio for action item number 5.
Great, thank you very much. And next we're going to speak about Madison on My Mind project, which we previously brought to you. And I'm actually going to hand it over to Van to kick it off. We're going to tag team this one.
So you can advance the next slide. Thanks, Grace. So to recap, this is a grant that we received from the National Endowment for the Arts. We received a $85,000 award amount. We have also provided an $85,000 match. That match is in the form of Matthew Mazzata's design, which you just previously approved. And the goals that we've outlined in this grant that we have received support for is to commission artists to design, commission an artist or artists to design a deep community asset mapping project. We were really curious because Madison is so physically large. Who is working within the creative economy of Madison? How can we support them both with programming, but also in policy work? And what mediums are people working in? And what needs might they have for work, lives, and live space? And to really kind of use this as an opportunity to both invest in physical artworks and creatives in Madison, but to also uncover how we can continue to invest in the Madison area and use this as really a blueprint for this larger neighborhood-based investment strategy. So PAC voted to approve Kristen Chapman in September of 2019, which, man, feels like a really long time ago. And she is our lead artist who has helped us co-design this, most recent iteration of the project, since, of course, some things changed in our world since September 2019. So we did reach out to the NEA to let them know that we felt like the project needed to slightly pivot so we could respond to both COVID, the March tornado, and the civil unrest that we have all been weathering as a country and as a community. So I just wanted to kind of frame that where we began, and then I'll talk about where we are now, and then Atilio will talk about how we are spending that grant money. So we can advance to the next slide. So since all the things have happened since our PAC voted on this project back in September, we have pivoted to adapt projects. Again, because of the tornado and COVID, we knew we just needed to kind of slightly rethink our model. We decided that we really need to emphasize supporting local artists and makers in Madison, especially those who are facing unemployment and have limited funding opportunities for a myriad of reasons we have spoken about today. We also felt really passionately that there is an inherent connection in Nashville, in our creative city, between local businesses and creative Nashvillians and artists, and how artists can help these local businesses who are struggling in many of the same ways, and lots of whom are also employees of those businesses or owners themselves, how they can support and highlight those businesses and kind of churn up public support in a time where those businesses are facing some really scary challenges, as are those artists. So we wanted to redefine what is public space. All the projects that you are about to hear about will observe best practices around social distancing, but they are providing artists and non-artists an outlet for expression and action. I think that's the most exciting part about this is we have an opportunity to fund artists in Madison to learn more about their practice, their world, their needs, so we can make educated investments and policy decisions moving forward. But it's also a chance for people to celebrate what is unique to Madison, and to do that as a community when coming together as a community has become increasingly difficult. So Attilio and Kristen have spent so much time and energy cultivating these projects, and we received, what was the final count, Attilio? How many applications?
So we received a total of 20 applications, and we are lucky to fund 18 local artists, excluding Kristen, but yes.
So we had allocated 60,000 of that 85 for artist projects. We are in the process of pairing some of those artist applicants, and Attilio can kind of highlight that in his next slide. But what we saw were a lot of really exciting patterns. So we had folks who were either wanting to work in the same location or working within the same or kind of related creative practice. And so in order to provide mentorship and connections with artists that have not been previously connected with one another, we're also thinking about ways that we can scale these projects up, because we do feel like there's some really exciting opportunities for larger investment. So Attilio, I will let you take it from here.
Thank you, Van. So as Van mentioned, we did allocate 60,000 for these projects. All the artist mediums include dancers, photographers, musicians, storytellers, painters, and fashion designers. The type of artists that applied really complements Kristen's skill set, because she has a strong skill set in identifying how to leverage other artists' vision and also how to cross-pollinate projects together to bring the art or the community together. Kristen's very set on making the Madison art community stronger so that they could not only help each other, but also learn how to collaborate with other artists and organizations as well. At this point in the project, as Van mentioned, we are identifying the projects to pair, and we're looking to close out in December. Just a couple here you could highlight. We paired up a couple of them that are either a dance company with a costume design, or we have 2 live performances that want to relatively perform in the same location. So we felt like it would be a good opportunity to beef up. I also do have a music producer that I could pair up with an aspiring musician that could collaborate each other, and especially bring awareness, correct me if I'm wrong, Van, with the sound studio that's, I think, fairly well known in Madison, and they just want to, highlight it even more because a lot of the original music did come out of Madison. So point overall, Kristen really wants to connect all these dots together because all of these artists don't know each other. And what a better way to bring the community together so then they can know each other and then uplift each other and then really have a really good base for Madison again. And it then feeds back almost back to Matthews, which is like another way of Madison rising again, it being on the map here in Davidson County, not just as Nashville, but Madison, and have that pride. So, again, as we've committed to 60,000 of the grant for the development and completion of these projects, and this is what we are asking you to fund today. Can I have the next slide, please? Oh.
Excuse me, not to fund, just to approve.
Oh, thank you. Approve.
Funding for, yes.
I'm not asking you to sign checks, so. Oh, were we talking about? Okay, well, I'll give you, I thought we were going to the motion here, but okay. So the motion is to approve funding for recommended projects for the Madison Online Mine Grant Fund. by the National Endowment for the Arts.
Thank you so much, Atilio and Van. And Grace, do we have any public comments on this?
We do not.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any members of the public present for comments?
There are not.
Okay, thank you so much. So that ends the public comment for this agenda item. Do we have any clarifying? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Van Rees, do you have a comment?
Yes, I wanted just to make sure that this commission knew that, of course, Madison covers 5 different councilmatic districts, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 3, and all were involved. There are 40,000 people that live in this zip code, and I'm really excited about seeing how the distribution of all of these activities takes place in all 5 districts. It looks fantastic, and I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you so much. My apologies for not seeing your hand before. Thank you. Okay, so do we have any questions or comments from commissioners? Okay, it seems like we don't, so we will need a motion. Anybody would like to make a motion?
This is Bonnie. I move that we approve.
Thank you so much. Have a second? Okay, thank you so much. If we don't have any further comments or discussion, I will do a roll call. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd?
Aye.
Commissioner Cheek?
Aye.
Commissioner Haynes?
Aye.
Commissioner Alvis?
Aye.
Commissioner Dow?
Aye.
Commissioner Powell?
Aye.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Busey-Nichols?
Aye.
So motion passes. Thank you so much. Just one thing, I know that we've been here for a very long time, and I thank you so much for your patience. I just wanted to thank everybody. It's been a pleasure being the chair of this commission. And thank you all for your support and for your patience for this last 1.5 years, 2 years. But I'm looking forward to having Jim as our new chair starting in November. So with that, that completes the business of this meeting. So meeting adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
You've been great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.